quorum, so you're good to start whenever you're ready.
I'm ready. I guess I'll entertain a motion that we leave regular session and go into executive session. Someone want it? Is that good enough?
And the chair so declares that, what was the rest of the wording I sent you?
Oh, you didn't send me any wording. Oh, you're gonna wait a sec. Hold on. Oh, no, wrong one. Consider, where is it? Call a vote to move into executive session under Mass General Law 30A, Section 21, to conduct a strategic session with respect to litigation at Cooper Farms Affordable Unit to discuss litigation in a clear, having this discussion in an open meeting may have detrimental effects on the litigation position of the town. If the votes and affirm, sign out a regular Zoom and go into executive session. Is that what you're talking about, Lauren?
That's the wording I'm talking about.
I know I got to get back into Zoom. All right, there I am. All right, okay, was that good enough?
Yeah.
I guess I need a second to that and a vote.
I'll second that.
All in favor of going to executive session signify by saying aye.
I would also
Well,
extend that by saying, pardon me, sending and then resume in regular session following it.
After we're concluded, yes. I'm going to do it by roll. Delisa?
Aye.
Anna?
Yes.
I'm an aye. What happened to Bartlett? Wasn't he just here?
It was. Yeah, you had a quorum and you have a vote.
Bartlett already left and went into executive session, didn't he?
There you go.
All right, so now we have to go figure out going into executive session. All right, I'll see you all in executive session and we'll reconvene when we've completed that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anna, your feed is a little bit slow, so if you have a lot to say, you might want to turn your video off.
Okay. So last time I talked, I was garbled.
Yeah, some of the time.
Okay. Sorry.
Great. Okay, so we're continuing. We're back in regular session. We have 6:30 board business. I'm going to start with board member updates. Does anybody have any updates since the last time we met about a couple of weeks ago?
The open space committee is trying to meet. They wanted to meet tonight and wasn't able to post it timely. But anyway, it's whoever's running it, Alicia Day, is really working hard to get it going.
Great. Bartlett, any updates on Affordable Housing Trust?
I don't think so, no.
All right, Anna, go ahead.
Yeah. Hold on. So I just wanted to say that Maren had provided us with some information about the Community One Stop for Growth process. And so I was wondering if at the next meeting we should have a discussion about that, because it seems to have to do with, the highway roads and whatnot. So I just wanted to find out if we should be talking about that soon.
You were a little garbled. I didn't understand what you were saying. Maren, did you catch what Anna was talking about?
I believe so. The town is considering what applications to put in for the Community One Stop for Growth grants. That's the combined grant program for MassWorks and Housing Choice and a whole bunch of other grant programs. And it's just a question from Anna if the planning board should be talking about that at a future meeting.
Sure. Do we have time in our February meeting, Maren, or do you want to push it off to March?
The February meeting would. So far, there's no new applications for the February meeting. So,
all right. Why don't we schedule some time then? Thank you, Anna.
Sure. And one more quick thing, real quick. So I know that Maren is working on the assistant town planner position. If we could just have an update at our meetings about status on that, that would be great.
Okay. Delisa, do you have anything?
Nope.
Okay, I don't have anything. Minutes from prior meetings, September 19th and November 16th. Anybody have any questions or issues with them?
They look good to me.
Having heard nothing, I'll entertain a motion to approve the
Actually,
meeting.
hold on real quick. So I agree, September 19th is good. So on November 16th, under the MBTA discussion, I just think there were a lot of really good points made by the public and by other board members from other boards. And it wasn't really, the detail wasn't there. It was just summarized. So I was wondering if it would be more helpful to have the verbatims as we had in other conversations, so that the folks know what the comments were specifically.
Okay, all right, so we'll do September 16th for now then. All those in favor of approving minutes as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, and we'll hold off on November. Bills, do we have any bills, Maren?
Yes, we do have a couple bills. We have 2 peer review bills, one for 6 Spectacle Pond Road, 1,560 for Green International, and then the first peer review bill for Northern Bank at 15,110.
Whoa.
Well, just happened in their billing cycle where they got, 70% of the work done.
Okay. Are you gonna vote to have them approved, or do you want a DocuSign? How do you want to do it?
I would recommend a planning board vote on those, and then Lucia will send them around for planning board signature from all
Okay.
members. And you just one more note after you're done voting on those.
All right, any issues or questions about it? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve the bills as presented. Anyone want to second that?
I so move. Yeah.
All those in favor signify by
Aye.
saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then the question or the note was that the GIS services that we use to create the maps for the firearms bylaw discussion, the bill from that came through $1,610. That bill is being paid by the land use department by an account there. So planning board approval is not required for that bill, but I just wanted to make you aware of it.
Okay, all right. Meeting schedule. We're on for February 5th.
February.
Is that a Thursday?
Yeah, I think we're trying to get back to Thursdays. And we have town meeting on the 14th. Is that right?
Okay, so
Wait a minute. Did you say February 5th?
no, it would be
That's Sunday.
It would be second.
Second.
Okay.
February 2nd?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. 6 p.m.
yeah. And town meeting is,
Wednesday, February 15.
okay.
What time? Do you know, Maren? Because I went to the town site this afternoon and nothing was posted yet about it.
Right, they're in the process of drafting the what am I trying to say?
The
Drafting.
announcement.
Yeah. They're drafting the warrants, and that'll be posted probably tomorrow with the select board meeting packet.
Excuse us,
We're
we're
not on
having
air.
problems here. Please let us interrupt.
Hi,
Right on.
I'm sorry. Dave, can you start the stream again, please?
Start the stream again, all right.
Sorry, we just noticed that you were not on air. It is being recorded to the cloud, so hopefully that's all set, but just wanted to make sure that before you talk
Got too
any
far?
further.
Okay, are we live yet?
It's working on it. Let's see.
You want me to try to take it?
Just says preparing to live stream the webinar. It's stuck there. Judy?
Yeah, I hear you. Are you okay continuing ladies
Yeah,
and gentlemen, with it not being aired live, and then we'll air it later.
Well, I'd like it to be live if at all possible. We can finish up our board business and stuff. How much time do you need?
This has not happened to me before, so I will feverishly figure it out behind the scenes.
Are the
Like, no.
participants, can the participants see us? The ones that are in the,
Yes.
they can see us. It's just not the whole town can see us. Okay.
Correct. Anybody
Uh,
that's on Zoom can.
All right, then we'll continue as is while we let you work through your technical difficulties.
Thank you.
Okay, so meeting schedules done. Affordable housing documents for Weber Village.
I thought we needed, I'm sorry, excuse me, Mr. Chair. I thought we needed a second meeting in January. I just want to know so I can clear a calendar or not. Is that not needed?
So the question is, if the board does not finish up with Northern Bank this evening, I floated the idea of a second meeting in January just for Northern Bank. I know we haven't had
Well,
that.
we don't even have a decision, so I think we would probably need a second meeting.
Mhm. So after polling the board members, it looks like, if I'm reading everything correctly, shoot. I believe Tuesday, the 24th was one of the dates that worked for most.
I can't do that. I could do the Thursday, but I gotta ask, is it any different? We're talking about
A week.
a week.
Yeah. Why don't we
And
just-
that's the board's decision to make.
I think if we don't get through it, why don't we just leave it for February 2nd? Is there anything pressing that we have to do it before February 2nd? As Jeff articulated, it's only a week.
Mhm.
Anyway, well, why don't we just see how we get first and then we'll get back to that one.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we're just about on track. We have a 6:45 public hearing zoning amendment bylaw for the extension of what?
We did skip over the affordable housing documents.
Oh, no, I thought I'd mentioned it, but we forgot to discuss it. Yes.
Yep.
The documents.
Right, that was just my update to the board, that I have the affordable housing documents for Weber Village, have reviewed those. The lottery agent was able to make some updates to those, and now my next recommendation is going to be to town administrator's office that those get signed. I do have a draft of all of the affordable housing documents for Hager Homestead. I have not reviewed those yet. After I review those, I'll get any comments back to the lottery agent on those. I was very happy to see that those documents were provided in draft early in the process. So I have a chance to review those. Just wanted to let you know what the status was on those.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board have any questions or concerns? Nope, I think we're good. Can we get out of board business and move back into our public hearings? Great, we have a 6:45 zoning amendment bylaw extension of King Street.
So, yeah, give me a moment to get to the hearing notice. Okay, the Town of Littleton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, January 5th, 2023, starting at 6:45 p.m. to consider a zoning bylaw amendment to expand the King Street Common Zoning District, sponsored by the Planning Board according to Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5. King Street Common Zoning District. The existing King Street Common Zoning District allows comprehensive redevelopment of parcels to allow a mix of uses. The proposed amendment of the zoning bylaw would rezone the following parcels in the Village Common District to KC District: 410 Great Road, 486 King Street, 476 King Street, 470 King Street, 450 King Street, and 582 King Street, and would also grant the planning board the authority to allow a master plan development for all projects involving 4 acres or more to base permissible density for multifamily units on KC parcels located west of Great Road on the ability to provide required parking and encourage stepping back of building heights. The full text of the proposed warrant article, as well as a map of the parcels, are on file at town clerk and planning board offices and can be viewed during their office hours or online at the town website. Any person interested or wishing to be heard should appear at this public hearing and or provide written comments, excuse me, by January 3rd, if possible.
Thank you. You okay, Mari?
I am, thank you.
Okay.
I just suppose that I'm saying that it is a Zoom hearing. It is signed by Bartlett Harvey Clerk.
Great. So we want, I see Rick's in the,
Please.
you want to promote him? Since this is pretty much, he's the author of most of this. Hey, Rick, how are you? Good
Hey
evening.
guys, good. Excited to be a panelist. Yeah, so essentially, what we're trying to do here, like we talked about at the last meeting, is to extend the King Street Common Zoning District onto the some parcels that are directly across Great Road from the 550 King Street project, and includes the 410 Great Road site, as well as some of the adjacent parcels that Maren just read aloud. And essentially what we want to do is apply all the zoning rules that were set in place by the King Street Common Zoning District, with really 3 amendments that relate to smaller parcels, as we discussed at the last meeting. And so there are a total of 4 zoning language changes that are proposed by the amendment. Like Maren mentioned, the first one is really just identifying the list of parcels that are the zoning would be extended to. That's sort of the first change, which is an amendment to section 173 227A. The second change is simply to make it so that you can have a master plan special permit for 4 acres instead of 5 that was previously in the zoning. So that's an amendment to section 173 228B, simply changing 5 acres to 4 acres. And then the remaining 2 changes are really what relate to the smaller parcels that we're working with on the west side of Great Road. So the third one is an amendment to section 133 233E. And that says that for proposed development on parcels west of within the King Street Common District located west of Great Road, that the maximum density for multifamily residential dwelling units shall be determined by the ability to meet the parking requirements of section 173 224A. And what that is, that's a reference to the form-based code parking requirements. That's what that section ties back to. And so this section here really has to do with density, right? So that's what we're trying to solve for here. Density on much smaller parcels than we're working with across the street at 550 King Street. I think if you excluded the 410 Great Road site, there's about 1.14 acres of extra land. So plus the 4.2 acres. So you're dealing with about 5.3 acres total of rezoned land west of King Street, or west of Great Road. And so what this density option does here is it really ties back to the form-based code, which is, I think, intended for the sort of smaller lots, using parking as a way to dictate maximum density. But the board also has other guardrails in place that are already in the King Street zoning district. Namely, there's lot coverage maximums, 50% of lot coverage with buildings, 80% when you figure in buildings and pavement. So in other words, impervious area is another controlling item that's already in the bylaw for density. And then lastly, in your because any project in this zone would be a special permit. So you have your general performance standards and criteria that was part of the King Street Common Zoning District, including 173, 232, A and F. And A says adequacy of the site in terms of the size of the proposed uses. And then F, which is proposal, is complementary to and reinforces the visual character of King Street Common Zoning District and the surrounding neighborhoods. So I bring those up because there's multiple ways to deal with maximum density, but I think with what's in here, tying it back to parking, which was very closely mirrors what was done with the form-based code, and then also just by mentioning those other guardrails that you already have in the King Street Common Zoning District, This was the method that we thought was sort of the most streamlined way to dictate density. And then the last one, a proposed amendment to the zoning language is section 173, 233H, and that's really the stepping back of buildings so that, right at Great Road or right at King Street, you have smaller buildings, and then allowing a step back once you get sort of further into the site. And that is only applicable again for parcels that are west of Great Road. So that's sort of a quick summary of the 4 proposed language changes that are in the zoning amendment. And of course, happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Thank you. I'll start it off with Jeff. Do you have any questions or concerns?
Not really. I just want to go back over, I'm looking at the map here on my phone.
Yep.
You're including the parcels that are the Conan store, the Vinyl Vault, the Asian Market. You're excluding the gas station and then the access next to the gas station. What is the purpose of it including the Conan store and the other? Yeah, thank you. The other parcel.
Sure. Yeah. So one thing we're looking at with this, right, is that we have sort of this standalone special permit that was already issued for 410 Great Road. And so what we tried to do was look and see, okay, in our experience, right, from working on 550 King Street, we worked with the town, with this board, obviously, to permit the larger IBM site. And then as we're in the process, the Chinese restaurant sort of became available for purchase. And so what we're trying to do is, rather than deal with many changes over time to the zoning, is try to be forward thinking, looking at some of those properties. I think particularly the vinyl store one, and maybe even the lot next to it, are sort of underutilized for what I think is possible for Littleton Common. And so we're just including those in here in the event that those parcels became available or were to be integrated in some way into sort of a master plan for the mill site. So just trying to be to minimize the number of changes in the future to the zoning district and just sort of incorporate them, give those parcels greater flexibility than they have today.
But the owners of those parcels themselves could come in at any time and utilize this once it's approved. It's not specifically for your use. It's for
that's exactly right. And as it relates to them, I mean, really the proposed changes in this, because they're in and of themselves, neither of those parcels exceed 4 acres, right? So they are basically, it's basically still form-based code if they remain standalone, which is sort of similar to how they're zoned. This just provides a flexibility if someday they were to become available and be added to the master plan, that they'd have that ability. But there's no requirement for them to be. We haven't really had much discussion about incorporating them into the plan, and as a standalone site, I think this probably just creates more opportunity on those if the developers sought it. But they're perfectly welcome to keep doing business as usual. This zoning amendment really, from a practical standpoint, is not much different at all from how they're zoned today in the VC district.
Okay. And has there been any, the other concern I had was the 14 Great Road parcel is its present boundary. What happens if you're able to alter that boundary toward 495?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about that. So right now that's sort of speculative. Maybe there's an opportunity to work something out there where that becomes, what we're talking about basically is a lot line adjustment, right? With the abutter to the north. I think if that does happen, we would probably have to come back to redraw the map.
And that's fine with you.
Okay. Yeah. And that would be if we were proposing uses within that would, require that to fall within the King Street Common. If it was used for, I don't know, stormwater or something like that, then we probably wouldn't need to redraw the map as an example.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Delisa, do you have any questions or concerns? Nope. Bartlett?
Rick, I missed what your explanation of why you didn't include the Shell station in the proposed change. Because, I mean, if you're talking about, possible future uses, once we're all electric, the Shell station will go away. So,
Someday, that might be longer than I have. Thanks for asking. It is a good question, right? Because it's sort of a glaring hole in the green area that you can see on the bottom left of the screen. The King Street Common Zoning District is not very kind to automobile uses. In refueling. And so what we wanted to do as part of this exercise is wanted to make sure that we weren't making an existing conforming site become non-conforming from a use standpoint. And we also haven't gotten any inclination that there'd be changes in the near term on that property either. So that's why it was excluded is basically that, this form-based code and the King Street Common Zoning District, they're very retail, multifamily sort of oriented. And so the architecture, the layout, the uses that are allowed in the zone are more geared towards that type of development and not very friendly to like automotive and fueling station type uses.
Let's be clear, we're also including the mobile stations not in it as well. It's not just the Shell station, it's the other corner as well.
That's right. Yeah. If you look at, exactly. Good point, Mark. On the bottom left of the yellow area there, is where the mobile station is.
right.
And for similar reasons.
Any other questions, Bartlett?
Well, when I looked at the last proposal for the mill building, I think you were talking about I think you said like 200 units on there, which works out to about 60 something units per acre. And that seems like quite a jump from the 20 units per acre that is otherwise allowed. So I kind of freaked out when I was thinking about, you could go put a parking garage, 6 stories down on that site and have, you could put a lot of units there. So, I mean, I'm just wondering if 60 units an acre is a realistic number, or what, if that was just for the bank or what that was for.
I mean, so it is a technically feasible plan, so it was proposed 285 units. That was on the 410 Great Road site, the special permit. We provided a plan that showed, okay, within the lot coverage requirement restrictions, and utilizing what they call podium parking, which is code for sort of parking under the building. We demonstrated that there would be enough parking to satisfy it and also enough landscaping to satisfy it. So it is a technically, and from a zoning perspective, feasible plan. The challenge, though, is from a financial standpoint. I'm not sure, the plan that was presented, if we would be able to obtain construction loan when we get to that point to build that plan as it is. So this rezoning effort, which is different than that sort of prior proposal, looks at including more land, and I think maybe helping with some of those density concerns that you're raising. This would add approximately 1.15 acres thereabouts of land to the King Street Common Zoning District on the west side, which I think would alleviate some of the need for, say, underground parking if there was more land added to the proposal. I think from an overall density standpoint, you're right. It is a lot higher than the King Street Common site, but the site's also a lot smaller, right? So you look at King Street Common was 20 units an acre, but that was over 40 acres thereabouts. Here we're talking about a tenth of the size, and so even though the density sounds a lot higher, I think just in terms of overall impact, I think it's what was previously approved. I think is appropriate. Or if you're going to do density anywhere, you'd like it to be in your downtown. And I think the provisions that are in place, both in the King Street Common Zoning District and also in the underlying, form-based code components of it that are preserved, I think protects the town from risk of adverse effects of that. Like, for example, you have great subjectivity as it relates to the way the project looks. If you think it's too big, you have the ability to say no. I mean, it's part of the special permit criteria that we're talking about that's in there. So this article puts a lot of faith in the planning board to understand the scale of the development that's proposed on these parcels and make sure that what ultimately gets proposed there through the site plan process is appropriately scaled and appropriately screened. Right? Because you might say, no, if there's a parking garage that's set way back and it's down in the hole and nobody sees it, and that affords the opportunity for more green space, let's say, that might be a fair trade-off in the mind of the planning board, at least something that you could consider and weigh in on. So that's why it's written the way that it is.
Thanks.
You good? Anna, go ahead.
So let me know if you can't hear me. All right. So Rick, I had a question about the 40 feet of the height at the 40 feet of King Street, because I guess I really want to make sure that I know exactly where you're talking about, given the fact that over on the first King Street Common site, the first 200 some feet were primarily just all of it.
It got a little broken up in the middle, but tell me if I've captured it right. So in the proposed zoning language in here, we talk about the different height requirements, and in this version of it for the smaller sites, it's only 40 feet, as opposed to over on the east side, it's 255 feet. Was that sort of the gist of the question, and why 40 feet here instead of, like, let's say 255 feet like it was on the east side?
No, it's more that in the original bylaw for H, we said that 4 stories was only for residential use, and then commercial use was a maximum of 2.5 stories. Institutional would be 3 stories. So that's what I'm referencing. So I wanted to find out, here in the proposal, it says that anything within 40 feet of King Street can be 4 stories, and it's the anything within 40 feet can be 4 stories, because we broke it out up above. And so I just wanted to find out, are we thinking that, or are you truly wanting everything to be 4 stories within 40 feet? Because that's going to be taller than what form-based code typically would allow.
Right. Yeah. So the 4 stories really address what we're looking to do at 410 Great Road.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do is try to stay. We're walking the line of maintaining consistency with a prior approval. If you made me sort of stare into the future and wonder, well, if more parcels became part of the project, what could happen? Like, what would the zoning allow for? Just if we closed our eyes and pretended that the other parcels were going to be added to the project. I agree with you. I think it's 4 stories is probably too tall for what you want to see along King Street.
So I think it might be in the wording, I think it says located west of Great Road. I think technically it's south of Great Road, isn't it?
Southwest. Yeah.
Because if we're talking about that strip on Great Road and the 40 feet right there, where the mill currently sits, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And that's technically south of Great Road, not west.
Both.
So that's what I just wanted.
Yeah.
Given that
Great
we're
Road's
talking
kind of
about,
Great Road's kind of got this going on, right? So it's kind of both south and
yeah. Okay. So you're talking about just the piece that is on Great Road currently, not King Street, because that's where I'm having questions, and maybe we need to actually delineate that on the map so that we know, so everybody knows exactly where we're saying this area can be up to 4 stories. Because I think I'm with you. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, this does read, to your point, this does read that 40 feet from either King Street or Great Road could be 4 stories.
Yeah, and I think it should really be just the King Street, not the Great Road.
Or just Great Road.
Just Great Road.
Yeah, and not King Street, right?
I think, Anna, I'm a little disturbed about incorporating the 2 properties on King Street into this. because it implies that, yeah, that everything could be torn down and a 4-story building built. That's not the goal of all this planning. So
Correct.
I'm sort of with Anna that maybe we take out reference to King Street and that the properties on King Street should be subject to the same form-based code that we did in the 255, deep zone on the IBM side.
So that's
so-
what Jeff just said is what I'm thinking. On King Street, it's lower, 255 feet back. On Great Road, it's 40 feet up to 4 stories.
Yep. And so I'm just looking at the way that the language reads in here now. And it's almost like we could just strike the word King Street from that section 173-233H part, the very last one on the first page, if you have it up. It's almost like we could just strike the King Street from there. And that would basically only afford this flexibility of stepping back only to Great Road.
I think that that is the thing to do, but it does leave a the corner, I mean, which striking King Street is better than nothing, but anyway.
Yeah, the corner, that's an interesting observation, right? Because you have setbacks from both King Street and Great Road at the corner.
I mean, Rick, I go back to, why are we including these 2 parcels? Is it to just give a different density calculation? Why do we have to include them? Why can't they just be subject to form-based code?
Yeah, so the thought was just again, just trying to spread consistency. So if King Street Common is going to exist behind them, from a zoning perspective, to sort of pull that down to King Street as well. And also,
except that you're pulling down 4- and 6-story apartment buildings. That's not what we want.
Yeah. Well, so any proposal, right? This is zoning, what we're doing now, but any proposal, right? It comes to you guys for review. And like you were talking about earlier, when you look at the criteria of section 173-232, you have great latitude as a planning board under these special permits to determine what is and isn't appropriate.
So we're back to, can we strike King Street from the wording, and we can leave the corner up to the vagaries of when proposals come forward. But I think pretty much everyone wants to see that properties stay the way it is.
Understood.
I lost the battle on the mill.
Yeah.
I'll really go to the mat for the Conant store. So there wasn't much of a battle, actually. No one seemed to think much of it. So.
And if I can just make a suggestion, that if there's a little map that goes with it to identify where the changes are, I think that would really help the voters at town meeting.
I agree with how Rick's approaching it, to include the other parcels just for the flexibility. I don't see the small parcels really entering into the picture here, as far as I think the people that are in there are happy that it's going to include it because it gives them more flexibility. But if you're going to do it, you might as well include your neighbors. I think that's that's how I'm looking at those other parcels. I don't see them as being a big cluster. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and as it relates, like we talked about, it's hard to separate the zoning and the actual development proposals. But any development proposal, whether it's in form-based code as it is today, those properties could be redeveloped under form-based code, right? Today, without the zoning change, or whether it's in King Street Common, they have to come to the planning board, and you guys, in both cases, both in the form-based code and in King Street Common, you have a lot of subjectivity in the ability to shape what happens there. So,
okay. Anybody else have any other questions other than I think what we've talked about? We're getting to the point where we should vote to send it to town meeting.
What did we decide about the King Street, striking King Street from the language? I think Anna and I would both like to see that.
We're amenable. I'm just I'm glancing down at Maren to see from like a logistic standpoint.
Yeah, I don't think that substantively changes the bylaw proposal. I think we can get that that accomplished.
Yep. All right, so do we have to do it as a yellow, or can we do it when we actually send it to the printers?
I can do it tomorrow. I will send, presuming after the hearing is closed, you vote to recommend it to town meeting. I have to send it to town administrator's office anyway, so I can make that change before I send it.
Okay, we all good with that?
Is there any public comment to tonight?
What?
Is there any public comment on this tonight?
You're in a public hearing. Somebody would need to raise their hands in order to speak to it. No hands raised.
Okay, so then I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing and then take a vote on this. All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye.
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 I,
Yes.
Bartlett, Jeff?
Yes.
Bartlett?
yes, I,
Okay. So then I'll entertain a motion to approve it and send it to town meeting floor for a vote at town meeting on February 15th. Someone want to second that?
I'll second it.
All those in favor, I'll go by roll call. Bartlett,
yes,
Jeff,
Aye.
Lisa,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you guys very much. Yep, take care. Have a good night. Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
And
Okay.
Mark, I presume that the wording I should use is that the planning board recommended it to town meeting floor.
Correct. We
Okay.
recommended for consideration on town meeting floor.
So is the town meeting the 15th, which is a Wednesday night?
Correct.
Okay.
It's a very good question. It'll be in the select board meeting packet that's published tomorrow.
Okay. So I won't put it down now. I'll just wait and hear what.
Yeah, the 15th is Wednesday, so.
So, but that Monday's the holiday, so. Yeah.
Well, obviously they know when they're having it. We'll get it out there.
You don't
Okay.
want to do a Valentine's Day town meeting, special town meeting.
Oh, that's right. That's what they avoided. You're right. Thank you. Yes, the 15th is what I heard.
Okay, well, we'll keep you all posted. Okay, great. We have 7:15. Littleton Station, community Littleton Station, discuss scheduling timeline.
Okay. So Emily Innes and Eric Halverson are here, our consultants. So should I promote them?
Please.
Okay.
So Emily and Eric is joining us as well.
Yes.
So I'll start while you guys get settled in. I asked to have this because it seemed like it was going to be a long time before we got this bylaw to the voters at town meeting. We had it all set for town meeting 2 years ago, spring of 2021. We were pretty much right there, ready to go to town meeting. And it it's a important article, and I think it really should be at a regular town meeting, not a special town meeting or a fall town meeting. So I wanted to bring you in to discuss, even if we have to hold more meetings on it, to try to push this along to get it for spring town meeting. I think the landscape has changed in the town of Littleton with as you just heard, what's going on at the Common. So we need to address what makes sense to go out there. And I just wanted to try to see if we, at all possible, have it at Springtown meeting rather than, and the difference being we get more regular people come to Springtown meeting. This is an important issue. It's been on our agenda for, correct me, Delisa, we've been looking at this for 4 or 5 years now. It's not something that we had a panel together with select board and planning board members, and we had a consultant, and now we've gotten funding from the state, and now we have direct guidance from the state as to what they want it to look like, what they want us to do. It just made sense that if at all possible, if we could have it for Springtown meeting, and that's why we've invited you. So having said that, I'll open it up and then we'll ask you questions. How's that?
And actually, Emily has additional information to share whenever you're ready.
Okay.
I think it makes sense to hear from the other board members, and happy to ask any or answer any questions. I did provide 2 different timelines. One was the full public outreach and engagement that was due December 1st, and that was based on the original schedule. And then in response to the question of whether or not we could get something in time for town meeting, I've provided a second schedule that compresses the events in order to meet the town meeting deadlines. I know you all are very aware that there are printing deadlines, there are public hearing deadlines that go into town meetings. So I've taken those into account in that second schedule. So happy to answer questions on that, hear any other thoughts from the board first, and go from there.
Can we share your schedule? Can you show us the schedule? Might be a little easier if it's at all possible to see it.
Yes, I do have the ability to share my screen, Mara, and if that's okay with you, would you prefer to see the schedule for the spring town meeting this May 1st?
Please.
Then let me pull that up and let me know if you can see that okay. I'm going to try and make everything a little bit more visible here. So by zooming in, there we go. Okay. So hopefully you can see that. So I actually worked backwards from town meetings. So starting with your town meeting date this year is May 1st and worked backwards all the way to tonight, if you don't mind my scrolling. So the key pieces are obviously you have to be ready for town meeting on May 1st. And what this means is that you have to, the planning board, as you know, so this is for people who might not be familiar with the process, you have to hold a public hearing prior to town meeting. There is a report that's printed for town meeting that goes out. Now, I understand that it's different towns have different procedures on this, but I understand that Littleton has in the past put a draft into the town meeting report and has been able to have sheets on the town meeting floor post public hearing that might change that. So that gives us a little bit of flexibility. But you'll see here that the report is sent to the printer on April 4th and printed on April 6th. And then it is delivered to the post office on April 14th and mailed on April 15th. So you have a regular planning board meeting on April 6th. And so that could be the public hearing, or there are a couple of other options. I've actually put into the schedule April 13th as your public hearing. So it would be after it's printed and you would have any changes on the floor of town meeting. And the reason I'm starting with this is that tells us our deadlines for what we need to do before the 13th. So what that means is just scrolling to where we are today. I have my initial analysis of where we are is due next week. And then Maren and I and Eric and the other people involved in our team will be discussing that initial zoning analysis, aiming to present to you where we are, what we think. Maren would receive policy direction from you on February 2nd. Meanwhile, we'd be working on the outreach materials so that they'd be ready to go. The special town meeting in February threw the schedule off a little bit. So we are looking at the first workshop on the 9th of February, the second workshop on the 8th of March. These would both be targeted as evening Zoom meetings at this point. We would not have a third workshop. The original public engagement had one in between, but there's not enough time in order to get the draft of the zoning done in time for you to be holding public. So we need to make sure that a draft at least is ready to go to the Board of Selectmen's office on the 23rd of March. So that's the other time compression in here. And then the Board of Selectmen is voting on the order of the articles and the recommendations on the 27th of March. So we have some room after your public hearing to go to final language in April, but we have to have a solid draft for the town report, the warrant, by the 23rd, so that the Board of Selectmen know what they're voting on in terms of the recommendations, and something is being sent to the printer for town meeting. So that gives us 2 workshops. As I said, currently looking at Zoom. And that also means that in terms of content, we are doing exactly as we talked about at our meeting with you and the selectmen and the housing committee. We're working with what you've already had. So we're going back to the work that you did a few years ago. We're pulling that forward. We're evaluating what else might need to change in terms of the discussion. So the first meeting would really be about reintroducing everybody to that work and to the implications, talking about what's changed in terms of Section 3A, thinking about what's happening as you just talked. I came in the middle of the conversation about King Street. So, what's going on there, what implications that have. That would be the first workshop. And then the second workshop would be, here's what we're recommending for the zoning. Here's what we're testing. And then quick turnaround on that. Obviously, we'll be working on what that draft zoning is as we approach the second workshop, test it at the second workshop, and then turn around that first draft on the 15th of March, hoping for a very fast review and edits from Maren, and then presenting it to you on March 21st or 22nd, which is off your schedule, but in order to meet that 23rd of March deadline. So if you look at this compared to the other one, you'll see it's compressed, and the choices we've made about what we would be doing at each meeting based on the need to meet the standard town meeting schedule.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Let me ask the board what they think about this and whether they think it's doable. I'll start with you, Delisa, since you were on the original with me as well.
Let me put on my mute. Hold on.
No,
I am on mute. Okay. I think the plan's very doable. I think it's going to require a lot of work, and my assumption is that the consultants will spend a lot of time looking through what we've already been done, but I don't have any issues with what they're proposing.
Okay. Jeff, what do you think?
I think it's doable. I think that it goes without saying that we'll make whatever planning board meetings we need to do. I just have a question. What exactly are these workshops? Is it like when we did the master plan, or how would you describe them?
So it's, I wasn't involved with the master plan. But what we were thinking of for this one is typical move for the first workshop is, why are we here? What are we doing? What is this planning process we're talking about? In this case, as I said, it would be narrowed to, this is the work that was already done. These are the things that have changed since that work is done. So, we now know what 3A means in terms of the requirements. As I said, you've had some things on King Street. So it's presenting that and what those implications are, and then taking a step forward and saying, given what's changed, here are the different things that we're looking at now. So, the conversation that we had, a couple of months ago now, in terms of maybe the station area could be more of that missing middle, lower scale housing, given what's on King Street. We would talk about what that is, what it means, how it might look. use maybe photographs of how other communities have done that, get input and feedback from people, and then take that information, take that input, and use it as we draft the zoning. And then the second one would be based on what we heard, a little bit of a recap, because some people will be at the second meeting who weren't at the first. Based on what we heard, here are our recommendations for the zoning. Here's how the language would work. What are your thoughts on that?
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? What was the purpose or the rationale behind having the third meeting virtual? And how would that work?
It's an excellent question. So the original public engagement schedule envisioned 3 meetings. The first and the third were the in-person. And we proposed that because that's something that the community is familiar with. The middle meeting was going to be a virtual meeting. And the idea was it would capture people who hadn't been able to be at the physical meetings and would bridge the gap. So it would be a little bit of a recap of the first meeting, a little bit of a look forward to the second meeting or to the third meeting. Also, in that original schedule, we were going to do more scenario planning, which is why we would have the workshops, and that middle meeting would give us a little bit more guidance on the scenario planning. That's not a level of effort we can do between now and May, and it takes it into a different type of process. So you lose the scenario planning, but you do in this new iteration or proposed iteration, you do very much focus on the work that you have already done to date.
I'm sorry. Maybe I'm being dense today. So would you have a virtual meeting?
In the second iteration, the one for town meeting, both meetings would be virtual.
So there would be no in-person meeting?
Exactly.
Oh, okay. That wasn't what okay. All right. I think that's unfortunate. I mean, I think you get so much value out of in-person, but
I agree. It's the timing.
Yeah.
It makes it very difficult. Not the least of which I've already got several public meetings scheduled for Saturdays in January and March, and I think a possible one in February. So that plus school vacation week, which knocks out 2 weekends, and that was the February thing. It was school vacation week, which effectively knocks out 2 weekends in February. Is difficult. A lot of people will take both weekends for school vacation week. So we try to avoid that when we're doing workshops. That was that. It was a couple of things that have been on my schedule for a few months already.
Okay, Anna, do you have any questions or concerns?
Thank you. Hi, Emily. So I hope you can hear me. Let me shut off my video. Maybe that will help. So I think it's doable. The time frame seems like it will definitely be a lot of pressure. Most concerning is the March 15th date, simply because you'll have 2 sets of public comments that you want to try to assimilate into the first draft of the zoning. So I think that's probably where I see the big juncture point as to whether or not you think it's going to be done. And I'm hoping to get your commitment that if you think it's just not really ready, that you let us know, because I know that I would rather delay the process if we don't have the necessary information to make the decisions, or to be able to have this well thought out. So that's probably my biggest concern, is just making sure that you have the time that you need. And you've done a great job at being able to work out the timeline, given all of the various holidays and whatnot that are popping up. So my one question is, during the meeting on November 16th, there were a couple of folks, myself included, who asked about whether you would explore the financial implications of doing this project. In other words, what would be the cost to the town? Is there any point in this process that you're going to be doing that?
It's a little bit more difficult with this process, just because we're not doing the scenario planning that we'd envisioned earlier. Eric and I can talk it through and see what might still be possible under this. The problem is that when you compress the meetings, you don't have as much time in between the meetings to do that higher level of analysis.
Okay, because that would be something that I think it is important, because here's sort of my thinking about how I see this as being a little bit different than the 550 King Street, because that is one specific developer, if you will, that said, yes, I'm coming in and I'm doing this, and we know that there are existing services there, where there's electricity, et cetera. Whereas that area where we're talking about, it may or may not, right? Because if we're looking at the whole half-mile radius, some spaces will have services, other spaces won't have services. So being able to take a look at that, I think, is really important as well. So if you could, please let us know if that will be possible. I'd appreciate that.
Yes, happy to talk that through. I think where it might fall in is it wouldn't be a component of the scenario I'm planning. In other words, you're not going to say, well, if you do this, you get this result. If you do that, you get that result. But it might be something that could fall into the between April and May. And as again, Eric and I can talk about what's possible given the timeline and the type of information that would be useful at which point, basically.
Okay. And then I had one more question that may or may not have anything to do with this work, but the MBTA Communities Action Plan is due January 31st. Is that something that Maren, that we'll be reviewing as a planning board, or how does that get submitted? Because it's the action plan, right?
Yeah, I'll take that answer. I'll be submitting the action plan. Most of the action plan is just the timeline of how outline of how the town is looking to comply with the requirements. And so the input from the planning board tonight on your anticipated timeline, I'll reflect that in the response to the state. The rest of it is just the work, highlighting the work that we have done and the work that is proposed.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Anna. Violet, do you have a question or comments?
Well, I kind of agree with Anna that this is feeling pretty rushed, and I think that particularly with the Zoom meetings, I would like to have more time, because I think it needs to circulate. There's going to be, I just think that the town needs to talk about it and sort of develop a response, sort of at a citizen level. So, I mean, I'll go with what the board decides, but I'm a little bit hesitant to take this accelerated schedule.
Okay. Well, I like the idea that they're working off of what we've already done for 2 years.
Yeah.
And we have if we don't think it's going to be finished, and we don't think it's going to be done in time, then we pull the article in March. But we just did a firearms bylaw. We got that done in a couple of months. We just we're doing a rezoning. We're doing a special town meeting for it. I think I think we should at least try. If it doesn't work and we don't get there, then we decide in early April that we're not going to do it. But I think given all the work that we've done in the past, the 2 years, where we left it right before town meeting, it's a good jumping off place. And if they can, it sounds like they can do it. If they can in fact do it, then we bring it. We're not going to bring a flawed product to town meeting floor. I guarantee you that. So I just say let's at least try. I'll work together on it and see where we get, see how we do with it. I just think it makes more sense. And again, I'll go back to it. It makes more sense to have a regular town meeting to decide a zoning article so important as this than to do a special for it, to do it in the fall when we've all been to town meeting. We have 100 people come in the fall, whereas we have a couple hundred people come in spring. And this is probably more advantageous to have it in the spring to get more people out, more people involved in it than the 100 or so normal regular people that come out for it. Just makes more sense to at least try.
Right. Okay. No, I think trying is good. I think that, I mean, the gun zoning change, I mean, there was a huge amount of support for that. I think that the train station is a much more complicated set of issues for the town to deal with. But
I think, I'm sorry, Bartlett.
Go ahead.
No, what I was going to say is I think we have to remember how much time we put into identifying the obstacles, the challenges, and how we were going to address that. there's so much work that's been done, and I think it's really critical that we dust off all of that work and make sure we look at it carefully and we incorporate it into these virtual workshops. Because what I don't want to see happen is that we're going over the same objections without addressing them up front.
I think the other issue that we have to address is the fact that 2 years ago, we didn't have a directive from the governor's office about what they wanted out there. We didn't have what was going on in the common. I mean, we have to obviously take that into account as we move forward. So that's where we start. And I agree with Delisa. We did a lot.
Yeah.
We did a couple of years worth of work. We have it designed, we have the feel, we have everything else. And I'm sure the professionals that we have in front of us are going to take what we've done and bring it to the next level. And hopefully we'll have something that everyone can see, can wrap their head around and understand where we're coming from with this, and let the people at town meeting decide this.
Okay. I think also it's important that people understand what the governor said and what the repercussions are if we don't rezone.
Right. If we don't do something, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think Emily and Eric, we go with your revised plan. If we have to have more planning board meetings, I think we can. We've done it in the past. Even if we do it Zoom, if we have our own meetings in Zoom and that kind of stuff, I think we can do it. If you tell us what you want, and we'll do the best we can to accommodate you. How's that?
Sounds great.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And we look forward to working. We see you in a couple of weeks, right? Like 2 weeks, right?
I'll coordinate the schedule with Mara and then we'll get moving.
Thank you. Thank you both. Okay, we have 7:40 informal discussion, marijuana, about the limit of the amount of marijuana cultivation facilities in the town of Littleton.
Mark, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just thought of some. Can I ask another question related to the MBTA station?
I don't know if they're still on. It looks like they both.
No. I was actually, it was a question for Marin. Marin,
Okay.
I just wondered, you're pulling together all this information for the consultants, like all the planning board meeting notes, et cetera? Because I want to go back through everything. Would you mind can you CC me or CC everybody, or let us know what dates it was discussed?
Yeah, just let me know exactly what you're looking for, and I'll pull together whatever. A lot of the older, all the planning documents and processes are still posted to the MBTA communities page.
Yeah, I have all of that. I'm
Yeah.
most interested, and I can go back and do the research. I'm most interested in the sessions where we discussed the challenges that we anticipate facing, and then how we were planning to address them. But I can go back. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, Mark.
That's okay. So 7:40. We don't have the proponents here. Actually, we're sort of the proponents, right, Marin? This is kind of one.
I'm not sure if anybody is in attendance to speak to this or not. They should raise their hand if they are.
I don't see anybody raising their hand, owning up to it. So I guess it comes to us. Do we want to address this issue? Do we want to try to mimic what has been done in other towns to address it? We need to decide our next step on this, since the residents are really not going to do it. They've asked us to do it, and this is something we want to do. So,
Mark, I still have an issue addressing this without a citizen petition. I think that if every time a small group of residents comes before us and requests a change to a bylaw and we react, I think it's just, especially right now where we don't have the bandwidth, I just don't feel comfortable pulling all this together and spending this amount of time without a citizen's petition. And especially given the fact that the town has addressed the cannabis, the whole industry twice now. So I personally would like a citizen's petition. I think that gives us some direction, and it gives us an idea of how widespread this concern is.
okay. Jeff, what do you think?
I don't think it's a matter of urgency, but I do, and that's just after this last discussion about all the work for the spring. But I think we should take it on. And I just want to say parenthetically that there was a big thing this week about how cultivation is way over cultivated at the moment. There's a glut of pot. So that maybe takes, the
Some of the pressure.
some of the pressure off. But I think we had a lot of people who have been affected by cultivation, and we need to, take them seriously.
But what's a lot of people?
Everyone
And
who,
again, look, let me say something. I personally would not want cultivation next to my house. So I get why people are upset. I just don't feel that, well, anyways, I'm not going to say what I've already stated.
well, I do think that pretty much everyone who's near near the cultivation, has complained. And I don't see, we've limited, or limited maybe isn't the right word, whatever. We've put in our bylaw about every other aspect of cannabis. So why not this?
But would it?
It could be, does it come down to a number? Does it come down to with the guns? I don't know. I think that it's certainly, I have no interest in not allowing it, but I don't see the big problem.
So that was my other question is, would we be looking at limiting the number or looking at zoning certain areas that are X number of feet away from residences?
I think both.
Maybe or take the gun, approach. Say, these are the appropriate places, go for it,
Mm-hmm.
I would be more comfortable looking at both situations versus just saying, no, we are only going to allow one in this town.
But we might find, if we have hearings on this, that many people are, do want to limit, or whatever. We don't know. So I think we should go down the road. Once again, I don't think it's something like the guns that we have to respond immediately, but, I think it should be on the list.
Okay. Byron, what do you think?
I agree with Jeff.
Okay.
We should take it on.
Anna, can you hear me?
Yes, I think we should continue. Yes, can you hear me? Can you
Yeah,
hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Yes, I do think that we should take it on, and Miss Reedy, I believe, who brought this to our attention, is happy to help in any way that she can. She mentioned that, so I think that being able to take a look at this, and would we be engaging town council then to assist us, given what other towns have done?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
The process for the gun bylaw is I think applies in this case, to look at what other techniques there have been, what other towns have done.
And so given the timing, then what are we looking at? Spring, fall?
Probably fall. I don't know
There's no way we can do spring.
Well, we don't know. We don't know if we get town council involved in it. They're good at stealing stuff from other towns. They've done it in the past for us. We'll see where we're at with that. I do agree that we should take it on. I think we're asked to do it. We could look at it. We can look at it from a number of different ways. We can look at restricting the number. We can look at restricting where it goes. And I think it's our duty to take it on and at least address the issue and see what comes of it. But like I said, we can start it, see where it goes, see what town council can do for us as far as the bylaw, other towns, other bylaws, and make the decision whether it's spring or a fall town meeting after that. But I think I agree with Jeff and Bartlett and Anna that we should proceed forward with it. We've been asked to do it, and I don't think it's not asking us to be. It's not something we shouldn't be handling. Let me put it that way.
I support then whatever then I will play ball.
All right.
And I believe that Ms. Reedy also provided some information that Acton has done for this particular topic. So we could also look to that.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was not, did not pertain to where Littleton currently is. That was, Acton followed, Littleton's lead quite a number of years ago and did a temporary moratorium. So that information wasn't helpful to the current process.
Okay.
I'm at a loss, for time and, direction on this.
So why don't we ask town council or to find out what other towns have done to limit the amount of units, and then we have it, get that for us, bring it back to us, Martin, and then we'll decide once we get something along that line, how to proceed forward. How's that? Is that enough guidance for you to keep it going forward?
Thank you. Happy to do that.
Okay. Board have any other questions or concerns about this? No. Yeah, like I said, town council's done a great job in the past with the marijuana bylaw itself, the guns, everything else. I'm sure they can steer us in the right direction to get us started, and we can pick the ball up from there. So, okay, do we have anything else before our 8 o'clock? I'm actually ahead of schedule.
I have to recuse myself, and what's the just click out of the, just leave the meeting. I mean, I'll probably just leave the meeting because it's the last discussion.
Yeah, or if you'd prefer, I could put you back to an attendee.
Yeah, that would be good because I think Laura wants to attend it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So any other issues we need to deal with, Mara, in the next couple of minutes while we wait for 8 o'clock, the witching hour?
I don't think I had any other questions for the board. Thank you.
Okay. Board have any input or questions that they want to discuss while we have a couple of minutes amongst ourselves? Anything?
4-minute break.
4-minute break. All right, we'll be back in 4 minutes. How's that?
Back at
And Lauren, do I have to do anything, or you just do it?
I will do it in just a moment.
We'll get ready, Jeff.
Thank you.
Or, yeah. Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you. All right, we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Not sure what it did. Sorry.
That's okay. 1, 2.
So we have quite a few attendees from the Northern Bank team. We also have Jesse Yang from UTL. So you'll let me know how you want to do this.
Can we get an overview of where we are with UTL and with Green first, or does Mark Vaughn want to do a presentation first?
I think Mark was ready to do a quick overview first, if I'm not mistaken. So
okay.
Promote him, and we can check with him who else he would like promoted.
Perfect. Thank you.
So Mark, I did just promote you, and you'll let me know who else from the team you would like promoted, or even now or later.
Sure, I appreciate that. I haven't been promoted in quite some time, so I'm pleased to be here. So for the record, Attorney Mark Vaughn with Rima Bronstein here tonight representing the applicant. Happy New Year. Good to see you all, at least remotely here, and hope everyone is doing well. Yeah, we have our team here just in case there's any questions or items that you would like us to address. But, representatives of Northern Bank and Trust, obviously, along with Dan Barton with Mogul DeStefano, architect, and Sean Malone with Oak Consulting Group, the civil engineering firm of record for the project. But just very briefly, we really didn't have much of a presentation, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I think, as you know, we've had several meetings thus far with the planning board, and certainly appreciate all the time and effort that you've all put into this. I think where we last left it at your last hearing that we had, a full hearing with you, the board wanted to have its peer review consultants review the materials and provide any comment or feedback. That obviously has taken place. We did receive in early December report from both Green International on the civil side and then UTL on the form-based code side, their comments and questions. And our team did spend considerable time reviewing and responding to those comments, and we provided responses prior to the holiday to both the town, obviously, and that was circulated to both Green and Util. So, many of the comments I think I would classify as, just requesting additional detail, clarification on certain things, and as opposed to any, substantive wholesale changes to the plan being required. And I do know there's been a series of discussions, communications, and some workshop type sessions with members of our team as well, along with folks on the town side, and resulting in some minor plan changes that have been reflected on the plan sets that have been submitted to the town. So to that, I did want to actually acknowledge and express appreciation to Maren for helping to facilitate and coordinate all of this over the past month and a half. So I thank you, Maren. I appreciate your time and effort. Sometimes I feel like I've been on speed dial with your office, just in terms of, getting everything in place. So at this point, we feel like we have been fully responsive to the requests that have been made, and, like to think that we are in a position, hopefully, to get a decision from the board this evening so that we could move forward with the project. I think, as you know, Mr. Chairman, we have been at this for quite some time. Obviously, with respect to this application that's been before the board, but even prior to that, going back for, maybe, 3+ years, I guess, as we've been talking about the redevelopment of this property in a manner that would be consistent with the form-based code that the town had been working on, and that, we were involved with as well, in terms of showing renderings and things that, what we thought would be a good utilization of this property. So we're really excited about being able to move forward. I think, as I've mentioned before, it's a proposal that we feel satisfies fully the spirit and intent of your bylaw, and would certainly be a signature and transformative project for the town. So with that, hopefully we can be in a position to hopefully reach closure and move forward. So again, we didn't have a presentation. I know we've submitted all the revised material. Our team is here if there's a question about any element of it, but the plan has been modified slightly to be responsive to some of those peer review comments that had come in. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So then I will open it up to a report from Green and then from Util. Probably makes more sense because that's kind of how we left it at our last meeting in, I believe, November, right? We haven't really talked about this since November.
Yeah. So let's see, I had a discussion this afternoon with Tom Bigelow from Green International. Given holiday and vacation schedules, they're still undertaking the back check of the revisions. But as noted, as Mr. Vaughn noted, there weren't any what I'd call deal breakers in the comments. There were some clarifications, there were some updates, and I think Jesse can just provide some quick input on the architectural updates that were done. But the traffic is what it is. The peer review for that was complete, and the responses provided for the stormwater and the site itself. Mark said that they have updated the plans and provided those. And Jesse's here for a quick update on the architectural.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jesse, if you could give us a
Sure.
brief update.
Yep. Hey everyone, it's good to see you all again. Some familiar faces. Thanks for having me back. Happy to speak to the architectural and the form-based code elements of the project, the review of the project. Generally, the proponent has been very responsive to our comments and concerns, and annotated kind of deviations from the form-based code. There were about 10 or 11 or so comments, and again, the proponent has generally satisfactorily revised and updated the plans and design. to meet our kind of comments and expectations. There were more specifically, there were some comments around kind of the design of buildings, massing, and overall legibility, some of the setbacks, etc. And those were addressed and are updated in the site plans and some of the views. There are a few other elements that, while they deviated from the form-based code, the proponent provided what we felt at UTO anyway, adequate explanation or reason for the deviation that we felt was in the spirit of the code, and that we're happy to defer to the planning board to make a final call. The most notable of that is the rotation of building 1 or building A, the bank, of which again we are happy to defer to the board. It is again a deviation from the code, but at the same time, the proponent has provided an explanation and reason for that rotation. Yeah, I'm happy to go into more details, or I could share my screen if we want, but I don't imagine we want to get to too much detail. But that's the summary.
So suffice to say that UTL is comfortable with the overall project, that it adheres as best it can to our brand new form-based coding.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have any questions of Mr. Yang while we have him on? Violet, do you have any questions?
Well, no questions really. I have some comments. I would have to echo what Jesse just said about the bank building being rotated. I think that it is actually, I mean, I would interpret the code to mean it. I want the bank building to be parallel to Great Road, and I think that having the back of the building parallel to Robinson really doesn't make any sense to me. But it's really late in the process for me to be saying this, so that's just a comment, really. I mean, I think that the bridge that's not in the code, but I think that's an interesting thing that I'm willing to accept. I think that's fine. I think that's actually kind of interesting and amusing. But the breaking of the street line on Great Road, I have a problem with that.
Okay. Delisa, do you have any questions or concerns? You're muted. You have to unmute.
Unmute. Oops. Okay. I think it's way too late in the game to go back and require the bank to turn that building. I think, we basically gave them the go ahead and said it was fine months ago. So, like Bartlett, I do like that bridge over. I think it is fun. I also love the fact that they have put seating in front of the coffee house. I would like to see some charging stations added to the parking lot. I don't know what that number should be. I started doing some research today, but have not been able to complete it. So other than that, I think they answered all of the questions satisfactorily. Oh, except I did have questions about the porous. There was an area where we were talking about porous material, and I'd have to find it. I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Porous pavers, you mean?
Yeah, it was unclear as to what had been decided. Maren, do you know what I'm talking about?
I would say it's probably, we're talking about the walkways. Are we talking about the big walkway in between where the
Yeah, and just what it was going to be constructed. I'll find it.
Okay. I agree with Bartlett and Delisa about the building. we have a unique piece of land there. We don't have any other pieces in the town of Littleton. That's a triangle. We did tell the bank early on. They've stated it's going to be their signature bank. I think we're too late to revisit that. I don't have a problem with that. It's not perfectly perpendicular or any of that. I just think it fits with the way they proposed it. It's that I think that ship sailed a long time ago, so I'm okay with that. I think they've done a nice job. My biggest concern of this whole thing is that the drainage works. That they've done everything they can to minimize the impact to the neighbors, and I think they have. I know there was discussion about the fence. We saw the rendering of the roadway and the fence on top of the berm. I don't have a problem with it being a 6-foot high fence. I think 8 feet is probably, given that we have the berm there. There's no other fences in the town of Littleton that are 8 feet tall. I think 6 feet is what we talked about. I think it's more than adequate. I know that some of the residents were concerned about it. Mr. and Mrs. Schwartz were. I still think with the 3-foot high berm there and a fence on top of it, I think there'll be plenty of screening with that. And again, like I said, I don't know of anywhere else in Littleton that there's anything more than a 6-foot high fence between property lines or between zoning districts. So I'm good with that, and I'm good with pretty much everything else at the bank. I like the bridge. I think it gives some character to what's going on over there. We've talked about form-based coding to revitalize the common. I think this is actually the first step. I'm cautiously optimistic that the common will benefit greatly from this, and that people will start coming back to the common and start walking the common. I do want to see if we can get a crosswalk there at some point. I agree with Mr. Sanders on that one. That would make a lot of sense and probably make it a lot safer. And I think the bank has done pretty much everything everybody's asked them. I agree that we've been 2 years in the making, and I think it's time to kind of, move forward on this one. And I'm going to leave Anna, you're the last one. I'll leave it up to you and see if there's any other questions from the audience after that. Can you hear me, Anna?
Okay.
Go ahead.
I can't. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So thank you very much, Mr. Vaughn and team, for the changes that were made to the buildings and to the public spaces based on the peer review recommendations. The renditions look much more inviting. So thank you very much. I have about a dozen questions, and so I'll just kind of go through them if that's okay. Hopefully, let me know if you can't hear me. So building A, I would like to just state that I have been opposed to building A since the beginning because it doesn't comply with form-based code. And it does concern me that if we approve this one, that, it's a slippery slope. So I have not been happy with the fact that it doesn't comply. And so moving down the street to building B, I wanted to find out if maybe we can even show the photo or the rendition of building B about the fenestration. Where is the extra glass to be counted? I know that it's still only at 54%, but I just wanted to get an understanding of where are we talking about this additional glass that allows that percentage to be bumped up.
I think that Dan Barton may be best equipped to answer that. I'm Myron, if allow him to join here.
Yeah, he's in the process of being promoted to panelist. Meanwhile, I'll look for that page as well.
Thank you. And while Dan's coming on, the bridge, again, a stickler for those kind of things. I understand that my colleagues like it, and so it's likely going to be there. So I just wanted to voice that I don't think it should be. Dan, go ahead. I think you're muted.
You're mute, Dan.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thanks, Anna. I believe that I can share my screen for a moment. Let me make sure that I can. Are you all seeing building B in front of you?
Not yet. There you go.
It says I'm sharing. So, Anna, to answer your question, what we had proposed and Jesse had commented back on relative to the peer review comments was that the large glass area, and I'm going to put a box around it if I can, that's bright. That large area be included in the calculation. This is essentially like a large wide open barn door. And it's all glazed top to bottom and a little bit on the inside edges. So that was what was making up that difference, just to help clarify and answer your question.
Right. Yeah, that's helpful because I didn't see where the difference was that made that up. So it's all the little windows that are there up on top.
The entire array, correct.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Dan.
You're very welcome.
So moving on under peer review item number 18, traffic count. So on what dates were the updated traffic counts done? Because it looked like there was updated information. And was it on a school day or a non-school day?
I'd have to look for that. Anna, I'm not sure our traffic engineer was able to join us today. I know that he did submit new data in response to the peer review comments.
I believe Scott's here.
Oh, he is. Okay. I can't actually see who's.
Sorry.
Right.
Yeah. I did promote Scott Thornton of Vaness.
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks, Myron. Yeah, and as far as the traffic counts go, we had conducted those in July. So that was the earliest time that we were able to get out there to do those counts. So we didn't collect any supplemental information, but what we did do is we expanded I guess the database of the traffic volumes that we use to develop adjustments for the COVID factors and for seasonal factors. When we initially had the report or prepared the report, we didn't have the full month of July data available. But since it was December when we were preparing these responses, we were able to get the full month of July's data. So we provided that information to Green for their review.
Okay, so that was what was provided. Okay, so since you're on, another one of my questions relates to number 28 and 39, because there was a request around traffic mitigation related to 550 King Street. So can you help explain how that development would impact this development and how would you be responsible for that? I guess I was just a little confused about why that was in there and what your responsibility is.
Yeah, typically, we include projects that are either approved or approved and under construction but not yet occupied. If a development hasn't prepared an access scheme or identified their impacts in a traffic study of their own, it's not really incumbent on us to solve their access for them. And that, it's one thing if it's a smaller project, but that's a pretty sizable project. And it would take a lot of effort to identify, really what would be a best guess at access, what type of mitigation they would have to prepare in order to accommodate their access and their development. So, so we did not include that project in our background calculations. I would say that as they move forward, when they're working on their traffic study, then they would include our development in their background calculations. But I think our project on its own really didn't have any change in level of service as a result of our project traffic volumes.
Okay, so this is just a question, and again, maybe Mark and Maren with a little bit more experience can help answer this. So let's say, for example, 5 years from now, when things are more in place and there is development there with more traffic, if there are issues that come up that are related to the new development having an impact on this development, how does the town go about asking both developments to mitigate what's going on? In other words, how does that process happen?
I guess I'll answer first and then I'll let Martin follow up. First of all, it's a state road, so we don't have a lot of leeway as to what we can and can't do with the state road. And the intersection is the state intersection as well. All we can make sure is that the safe entrance and egress to the projects that are before us, being this one and what happens at the Lapoli, and they'll do front door mitigation or front door. They'll give us a front door a scenario of how they're going to get on and off. But ultimately, the state's going to have to address what has to be done because it's their road. We can't force a developer to fix the state road. All we can make sure is that there's safe entrance and egress to the projects that are coming off the state road. And that's my take on it. Maren, if you want to jump in and see what you think, how you think.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add is that each development will need curb cut permits from the state highway department, and they'll work with state highway at that point for any mitigation measures that the state feels is necessary.
They'll have to go through the MEPA process anyway, correct? Yeah. So it'll all be addressed
for the larger projects, right?
Yeah. They're triggered by MEPA, or they trigger MEPA on a number of different fronts for their access, where their proximity to 495. So they're into MEPA and that's just for traffic. I'm sure there's other aspects of their project that trigger MEPA as well.
Okay. All right. Well, that's very helpful, everyone, for that explanation. Two more kind of transportation related items. Number 23 talked about public transportation in Littleton and that the shuttle going to the train station wasn't there anymore. But if we're talking about any public transportation, the bus to Lowell is still running. And so I just wanted to make sure everyone was cognizant of that and whether or not that made a difference in the response to that particular item.
Yeah, I not really. I mean, in terms of it was really just an identification of the transit facilities in the area.
Okay.
So it's just
and Anna, in answer to yours, we are going to make sure that the shuttle is revived moving forward once the Lapoli comes on, and I would hope that it would include this as well as we move forward.
Well, if that's the case, should we be asking the developer to put anything in there, such as a bus stop or anything like that then? Even if it is further down the line?
Actually, why don't we'll figure that one out. We'll get back on that one, whether or not an actual bus stop makes sense. I mean, that's a good point.
Yeah, because it's not, if we can plan for it, I think we'd be better off. Mm-hmm. Thank you. So yeah, I'm all for us trying to figure out what that would look like then. Mm-hmm. Then the last transportation question is on number 53, the trash vehicle. Rendering, I think, missed building B, the dumpster for building B and C, and I think that should be amended because it shows getting the trash from D and E, and A, but not B and C. So,
okay.
Yep, and then the language says design vehicle existing the site. So I assume that means that
exiting the site. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Item number 103. I think this was talking about And then Delisa, item 104 and 105 is the porous pavers. Because I had a question about that too. So I'm sorry, let me find item 103.
Because I've been going, which item is it?
104 and 105 are the porous pavers. Weren't you talking about that earlier?
Yes. 104 and 105. Yes, thank you.
Yes. So item 103 is the rain gardens.
Right.
And bioswales. And so I was just curious, I know you all have been before Conscom. Have they said anything about this? I mean, do they want to see rain gardens as well?
Myron, if you could allow Sean Malone to join, please. I think he could speak to that. No, he's been at all of the Conservation Commission hearings.
Yep, Sean's on his way in now.
Unmute. Okay, I've been promoted. Good evening, all. For the record, Sean Malono Consulting Group. To answer your question, Anna, no, that hasn't really been a discussion with the Conservation Commission at all. And I think we've talked about it a little bit with this board, how this site really isn't feasible for bioretention based on the soil composition and the elevations to groundwater. But again, to answer your question, no, that hasn't really been a discussion with the Concom.
Okay. All right. While you're here, Sean, another question. So item number 135 says, because I had requested tree boxes, and so I wanted to find out why that particular response said that there are no proposed trees on Great Road when clearly there are. So my big thing is I want to protect the trees on Great Road. If you walk down Great Road on the other side of the street where you have the poor trees that are hit by all of the backsplash and everything, anytime the snow machine comes down, they get inundated with the snow and dirt and rocks and everything. I just want to protect the trees. And so that was my
Did we lose Anna?
We lost her audio.
And so I see trees on Great Road.
But are there any on
did you hear my question?
No.
You didn't hear my question?
You're asking about the tree boxes on Great Road.
Yes, exactly. And I was saying that there are trees on Great Road, but item number 135 says there aren't any. So that's
correct. And to clarify, there are no trees fronting on Great Road. There's still a grass buffer strip, and then the 10-foot sidewalk required by the form-based code. And then there's a handful of trees along our frontage in the setback. So typically a tree box filter is it's a stormwater BMP where you try to collect roadway drainage or some other kind of potentially contaminated or pollutant carrying stormwater that will then filter through the tree soil and be absorbed into the tree. So when you say tree box filter, there really isn't a use here on this site.
Well, I still think, if you can hear me, I still think that those trees are going to get a lot of damage done as a result of the snow that's going to accumulate with all the debris from the streets. And that's just going to go right onto the trees. So I'm just trying to protect the trees and any of the vegetation that's there by doing something like that. So,
Sean, are you saying that the trees are like 15 feet away from the road? I think we're missing. I think maybe Anna's missing that point.
Yes, exactly from Great Road, and then all the other trees throughout the site are in curbed islands. They're not in direct contact with stormwater from roadways or anything like that. So they're pretty well protected.
All righty. Well, in a couple of years, if I see them, I will send you pictures.
Absolutely, and I'm sure the bank is going to have a good landscape contractor on board that'll maintain everything and keep this site looking beautiful.
All right. Well, okay. So moving on, Mark Montanari, the chair, spoke to the street crossing lights. I definitely would recommend that we as a planning board discuss whether we need to send a letter to the select board asking for assistance on that from our state representatives, whether or not that would be helpful. Because if we want that to happen, it seems like there needs to be some action from the select board, right?
Would it make sense to try to do it through the MEPA process, since the MEPA is going to have a look at this? Can we address it there, or would it make more sense, like Anna said, to try to get our state reps involved? Anyone?
So my recommendation to the board would be both of the above.
Okay. Why don't we do? We'll do both of those. How's that?
Mhm. Yeah.
Sorry, I was starting to say something. I was muted. So I think looking at it through the MEPA process is a it's a good way to approach it. DOT will have to weigh in on it, and it'll have to, that it'll have to be something that they approve. So it's a perfect place to review that consideration.
So would it be okay if we, as a condition of approval, that this is addressed during the MEPA process with the DOT?
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
I think that would be all right.
One last thing while I'm still
Okay,
talking.
great.
Go ahead, Anna. Are you done? I was just going to bring up one more thing.
I just have a couple more. With regard to the construction plan, I think I saw that in the peer review that need to be addressed in any determinations and findings and conditions is folks are really concerned about where the workers' vehicles will be parked, as well as the time limits on construction and noise and impact on the children's bus stop. So those three items in particular need to be addressed with regard to a construction plan. Can those be added in, please? Can you hear me?
Can we get it as a condition of approval that you give us a construction plan and how you're going to address?
I think we'd be happy to work with staff on a construction management plan in terms of, where vehicles are parked and hours. I mean, certainly tend to comply with whatever requirements that the town has in that regard, but happy to work with you on that.
Okay.
Do you have anything else, Anna?
I have one final item, and I can appreciate what the applicant, what Northern Bank has come back to say about the intent of following form-based code with respect to building A. I would like to talk about the intent of what the bylaw says with respect to housing. So the purpose of Article 30 in 173-216A states the purpose is to permit the development of mixed use and multi-unit residential buildings that do not exceed 2.5 stories. So mixed use per our zoning bylaw is defined as a combination of residential and commercial uses. But our applicant has not presented any reason as to why they are not building any residential units other than they don't want to. So my question to the applicant is, why are you not building any residential units in this development, given the purpose of this bylaw is to have residential units?
Well, I can try to address that, Mr. Chairman, through you to Anna. I know that this has been a topic of conversation before, so this is not certainly the first time it's been raised. But our interpretation of the bylaw is that while it certainly allows for residential to be built in the village common under the bylaw. It's not required. There's not language in there that says that any development, must be a mixed use development with a certain, ratio of residential to commercial. It's allowed, but it's not required. And I think, as we've indicated before, I mean, it could be further down the line that there's, intent maybe to convert some of this to resident, but at this point in time, that's not what the program consists of, nor do we think that this is a development, a bylaw that requires residential. So, I mean, I'm just looking at the language of the bylaw as it reads, and it certainly doesn't require a residential component to have a compliant project, in my opinion.
Well, yes. And so from that perspective, I would say that as you are asking us to follow the intent of a building that is askew from our bylaw, you're asking us to, waive that for you. And we're saying, what, the intent from the town was that we wanted residential, and Northern Bank has one of the largest lots in the common. One of the things that we want, Jesse and Maren, please remind that the smaller lots might not be able to sustain housing. A larger lot like this one, or a large lot, say down by Donnellan's, could perhaps sustain housing. And so, was there any other reasoning why we didn't make it a requirement other than that?
I'm going to jump in. Since when we had this discussion back in November, that we did the form-based coding before 550 King Street came on board, and we wanted to give them the option to do it. They were not allowed to do it. Now they are, if they want to do it. I could understand if we didn't have 550 King Street, but now that we do, I think it makes more sense to have office space. We don't have a lot of office space in the town of Littleton. It makes more sense for the second and third floor of these buildings to have office space than it does to have apartments. We don't need more apartments if they only have 700 of them going to be built across the road. So it's kind of a moot point as far as I'm concerned. And as far as I'm concerned, as about the skew of the building, it's a unique, I'll go back to the thing, it's a unique parcel. It's a triangle. We don't have anywhere else in the town of Littleton that's a triangle, and that's why it has to be done that way. We looked at it. We've seen it for 2 years. It's a little late in the process to be using now. And so those are my two comments. Not to belabor the point, but we've discussed this. We discussed this in November, and I think the bank has done everything we've asked them to do. We're at the point now where we have a project that is a very nice project. I think it's time to move on. I have one last thing, and Delisa brought it up, and it's about charging stations for cars. I do think it makes perfect sense, and I know you probably have to work with the Light and Water Department and the state about funding for that, because I know the state has been making money available for the EV charging stations, and I think it behooves us not to have charging stations there, especially given the amount of vehicles that are going to be going in and out. We have them at the point. I think we need to make sure that as one of the conditions of approval that you look into putting charging stations out there.
Yes, please.
I think if that's something that is important to the board, look, I've worked on a number of projects where it has been incorporated. The Burlington Mall, for example, we've worked with that location where, they bring in a number of spaces for that, right? But it's a much larger facility, and we're not necessarily against it here. I think if it's important to the board to, have us be able to provide that within the parking lot, then we can, craft a condition that works with you.
Good. That would make me happy.
Does the board have any
And
other
a lot
questions
of other
before we open it up to the general public?
Mark, could I ask Mr. Vaughn one more question?
Sure.
Mr. Vaughn, the plot comes to a point, the land comes to a point at the corner of Robinson, and I believe part of that point is not bank property. And in the report from Green, there was a question of who's going to maintain the land between the bank property and the curbs of Great Road and Robinson Road. And I was wondering, I mean, it's too small of a parcel for the town really to have a realistic way of maintaining it. And I was wondering if the bank could undertake to include that in its landscaping and maintenance of the grounds.
Yeah, so I think actually that was in my notes. I did have a conversation with Maren, and she mentioned that particular triangle. I just want to make sure that's the one that's out where Robinson meets Great Road.
Right.
I have discussed with the bank, and that is something that they would be willing to incorporate into their landscape contract, so that they would maintain that if that is something that's important to the town from a aesthetics and a visibility perspective. I think that they would be willing to include that within their maintenance responsibilities.
Great, thank you. I think it would make a lot of sense. I mean, I don't think the bank wants an abandoned triangle of any size in front of its facade.
Are we done? Can I open it up to the public? If anyone has anyone have their hands raised or any questions or concerns? Mara, does anyone have their hands up?
Yeah, just a moment. So Steve and Sandy Schwartz. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I just want to talk about the fence, and please don't roll your eyes, Mark.
I didn't.
Hi there. Okay, so the planning board met with us on Robinson Road, and we talked about the fence, and it was decided that the fence could go along the parking lot, and this would enable us to have an open green space on Robinson Road. So if the fence was going along the parking lot, we talked about an 8-foot fence, and that was agreeable. I'm not talking about an 8-foot fence on top of a berm. I was talking about an 8-foot fence along the parking lot. And then at your October meeting, we talked about it, and it was discussed and decided that it could go along the parking lot and be an 8-foot fence. That's what my issue was with the fence. Are we still there?
Yeah, we're still there. Mr. Vaughn, do you want to respond to that?
Our understanding of the value of the fence, if you would, was to provide shielding. Why we've located along Robinson Road where we have is to provide appropriate screening for the residents along Robinson Road. I think if it were put inside along the parking lot, I think there's a number of issues that come up. One is there is a detention basin there that needs to be accessed as well. And I think that could prove to be problematic just from a maintenance and upkeep and security perspective, what have you. So we feel that, by having the fencing along the perimeter of the roadway where it is makes the most sense. And I think is pretty consistent with how sites would typically be screened and buffered like that. To the extent that the concern is trash and noise or buffering, I think it provides more value where we're proposing it than more inside the site.
Well, once the house comes down, it's going to be a drastic impact on the neighborhood. So having the open green space is really huge for the neighborhood to be able to have the open green space.
Well, Mark, could I just make a point on that area there?
Sure.
Yeah. Again, Sean Malone. So this area up in that upper triangle is an ILSF. It's an isolated land subject to flooding. It's a jurisdictional area with the Conservation Commission. It's not an open lawn area. It's not a usable space. This is an area that we need to maintain to be able to hold and retain the stormwater for the environmental regulations. And then we're also replanting this with removing a bunch of invasives, replanting it pretty intensely with new trees and shrubs. So it isn't an open space in any value to the neighborhood like that in usage. But as Mark mentioned, because of its jurisdictional nature, it will have to be maintained, and it's part of this the bank parcel and the development. So it really makes sense to encapsulate it within the site for maintenance, for usage, and just to control the proper function of it.
Well, if I could continue on in regards to landscaping, I would just like to say it's been a letdown that a walkthrough with the landscape architect did not take place. I'm hoping that we will be able to tweak the landscape during construction. My next question is, can we schedule a walkthrough with the landscape consultant? It would be great if we could have a direct communication back and forth with this person.
Mark, if I may, Mr. Chair, I think think there's been some miscommunication. The board asked for a walkthrough with the landscape consultant, and that's what you had at your second meeting, I believe in November, if I recall, where the landscape architect provided the visual plan that showed if you were walking through or driving through that area, that's what you would see. I would suggest it would be highly unusual for the board to ask for field changes based on neighbors' input when the landscape plans are available for review.
Yes, Sid, I have to agree with Martin. They went out of their way to give us a visual walkthrough down the road, so you got to see in real time what it was going to look like. So I think they've pretty much shown you how it's going to look there. And I have to be honest, I thought it looked very nice. I thought they did a great job with the screening, the landscaping, the fence, the whole, as we saw it as we walked down Robinson Road. So we did get to see it. It's our hope that the bank is going to do a good job with their landscape, and I think it's in their best interest to make it look the best they can.
And I would say at the end where the planning department would have to sign off on occupancy permits, if there's any issues at that point, they would have to be addressed.
Does that help, Sandy?
Not really, but I don't want to take up more than my time, so I'll let one of my other neighbors continue. But
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Sarah Rombacher.
Hi, Sarah Rambacher. I'm the Sustainability Committee, and I did have a comment on the EV chargers. I just wanted to point out that the Littleton Common Revitalization Roadmap does say that redevelopment should provide EV charging stations. Massachusetts has adopted standards saying that there will be no gas cars sold in the state after 2035, which isn't that long. And a growing number of communities are requiring 10%. Even Boston is requiring 25% of spaces, parking spaces, to be EV charger capable.
Oh.
So
yeah, it's bullshit. I'm muted, right?
So I just wanted to ask also if the developer is aware of grant programs. Like I just started quickly searching, and there's things like the Mass EVIP, however you say it, program, which gives up to $50,000 per street address, paying 80% of the hardware and installation charges. I mean, these are some really good grants that are available, and I would hope that that would encourage them to look at that. I've also talked to Littleton Light and Water, and they're willing to work with you to explore grants and to figure out how these chargers can be installed and make that happen. There's also probably DOER grants and green community grants possibly.
So Littleton Electric?
Littleton Light and Water, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I appreciate that. And yeah, we were aware of grant programs being available, but certainly something we can look into further.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very important. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, Rich Carter.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead, Rich.
So I'm going to continue Sandy's comment with regards to the walkthrough. I had sent a number of requests on that topic and hadn't heard from anybody. So I have to say it's a bit disappointing to be at this meeting and to be in a very reactive state to hear from the board saying, this would be unlikely when had conversations, sent multiple requests and didn't hear from the developer. A picture's worth 1,000 words, but literally having the ability to talk to someone, to point as you walk down Robinson Road and explain in detail. We're not developers. We're not landscape architects. We don't, for our day-to-day, read all of these plans. So it really would have been extremely helpful, and we would still really like to have that walkthrough. Having said that, I've got a chance to look at the December landscaping plans, and it's a very robust plan. One of the things that we shared early on was a request for a lot of screening with regards to evergreens, right? And the whole roadway is lined with white pines. You look at the very, very large white pine that's on the Whitney property, a 50-year-old tree, however old that is, it's fantastic screening at a huge height. So we were looking for something that's going to mature, it's going to be there for a long time, and it's going to offer extended screening through the age of its life. So, and that's a conversation that had we had the opportunity to talk to a landscape engineer that's their discipline and their expertise, we could share that across the neighbors. And that's what we are. We're neighbors to this project. We're your closest neighbors, and we're hoping to, continue that relationship, and would really, really appreciate the ability to do that. So that's the first thing. With regards to staying on plantings, when you see developments go up all the time, you see X percentage die, after the first planting, right? And those are replaced very quickly, right? Because the developer wants to showcase their development and make it look pretty. My question is, what happens in year 2, 3, and beyond when these die back for disease or whatever? Is there something written into this plan that allows, at least from us on the Robinson Road side, to say, they planted X and 3/4 of them have died over the last 7 years, is their ability to replant is a question. Also, if you look down Robinson Road, it is an old farm road. It was the Robinson Farm. It's lined with classic New England stone walls. A question I would have asked had I had the opportunity to meet with the landscaping engineer is, there's an existing dry stone wall there. What is the developer's plans on extending that wall? And often you see developers will come in and, create these really pretty masoned stone walls, and then the Toyota dealership has one lining theirs, and after a while you see that mortar fail and you see the stones all collapse. So I'd be very interested to understand what that stone wall is going to look like. Again, something, if we had the opportunity to meet in person, which is what we'd asked on multiple times, we would have had these conversations and been more knowledgeable coming into this meeting. I also passed along a picture of a pipe that goes from 28 Robinson Road across the street to the Whitneys. And I believe that was in there when they developed the residential road. And I think that folded into the peer review. And I was curious what was discussed with that. Is that retained? Is that if the road is being reworked or repaved, is that going to allow water egress from the residential side into the property, which it's intended to do? So a bunch of questions. I'll pause and appreciate the developer and the team's response.
With respect to the walkthrough, if that's the term that was used, I mean, our understanding from the board was to prepare at considerable time, effort, and expense that animated video showing what that Robinson Road landscape buffer would look like, with all the landscaping true to form in terms of reflecting the grades and the berming and the stone wall and everything. So, and we did factor in to that a lot of the feedback that we did receive, and I forget what hearing it was. I know that there was one gentleman that said, there's a 36-inch linden tree that, we really would like to see retained. And, that's actually not within our property line, but we deliberately have modified the plan to have the berm be able to maneuver around that so that tree can be preserved. We've tried to be very responsive to all of the feedback, and I think it's an extremely robust landscaping plan. I think you'd be hard pressed to, I'm not going to say find something as robust, but look, the bank, they really value not only today, but going forward, their relationship with the town, the community, and the neighborhood. They've been here a long time at that existing branch. This is going to be a location that they're going to put a lot of pride and effort in terms of making sure that, they want to be the bank for you all and not aggravate you so that you don't want to be a customer of theirs. So,
yep, understood.
They're committed to making this first-class operation. And for the future maintenance and upkeep, I think that can be built into the landscape contract that, if trees are, die within a certain, year of planting, that, would have to be replaced. So
is that just so there were a number of questions and would appreciate, kind of a response on all of them. One, did you get my request? And if you did, why didn't I get a response back? That would have been appreciated.
Okay, so if I could go back to your question on the site plan before we jump to other questions. The site plan itself, should the planning board approve it, is a zoning document that can be enforced through zoning. So landscaping, maintenance, is if there are written complaints to the building department, the zoning enforcement officer can, if for whatever reason, if should it fall into disarray, then that can be enforced through zoning. And then the other question that you had was a drainage pipe that is across a public roadway. I don't know, maybe Sean is familiar with that one.
Yes, sure. Thanks, Myron. Yeah, and we looked at that very early on in reviewing the site 3 years ago. I mean, we have a catch basin right next to 28 Robinson. So we looked at that to see if there was any connection into our site, and there is not. And we've also reviewed the town's drainage infrastructure plans online on GIS. And what that pipe does, it enters a catch basin on the northern side of Robinson Road and then proceeds up to the northeast, where it then discharges into a drainage easement. So the short answer to that question, we're not impacting any of that. That stays as is.
So that enters the catch basin that's right at our mailbox then at that corner.
Correct.
Sounds like. Okay.
Correct.
All right. Thank you for that. With regards to the stone wall, can someone comment what type of stone, how that stone wall is going to be constructed, reconstructed? A New England drywall, a mortared wall? What is the intent?
Right. So the intent and again, I know I'm sure is, not everybody can attend every hearing. But this is something we talked about with the board, back in concept phase. But we want to continue that existing field stone wall as it looks now, up through 28 Robinson. So it's not going to be a mortared wall, just field stone placed in hand. One of your neighbors, Mr. Cataldo, had suggested using the stone wall to gain another foot or two of elevation in the berm. So we've incorporated that. So the intent is to rebuild or continue that stone wall build to connect those pieces across that Robinson frontage of our site.
Okay. Well, thank you for those details. That's very helpful. I guess I got one last point, and I'll pass it along to the next person to comment. With regards to the common, with regards to the corner of Robinson Road, that open green space, and a gentleman from the board mentioned, incorporating the landscaping care within the project. As you all know, my two girls have grown up. I've got one that's in high school, one that's college, and now into her business career. They were both born on the road. I bicycled them down the road when it was a very less trafficked area. I'm going to just throw this out. I don't know if anyone has said this in the past, but on that corner, where typically all the new kids, because we've got second, third generations growing up here, walking down that road, on that actual corner, is there an opportunity to put anything there for the kids, for them to sit, for them to seek shelter in the rain, or anything like that?
Are you when you say on the corner?
Yeah, right on the corner. So you see the bank's entrance, and then to the left of it, there's a couple of trees and a green space, and that's where the kids have always hung out, waiting for the bus to arrive, which will be right on that corner. I don't know. Is there any? I'm just throwing that out there. If there's any opportunity to do something we've got some new kids we've got a new baby that was just born on the road, which is one of your neighbors directly behind the bank. So for consideration, you can think about that, but that might be a nice gesture for the neighborhood as well.
Yeah, it would probably be off of our property line within the town's
jurisdiction.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's. Look, I mean, I think it's happy to explore and look into it. I can't commit to it at this point that it's something that we could, absolutely.
Yeah, understood. I just threw it right at you. So if it's something you could explore, that would be great. I think I've used up my time. Thanks for your response to my questions, and appreciate everything that you're going to deliver to the town beyond Robinson Road. Some great opportunity for expansion for the common.
Thank you, Richard. Mr. Bond, didn't we talk about a bus stop right there? Because I think when we were in the middle of discussing it, we knew the bus was going to stop there, didn't we? I don't think we talked about a real structure there, but we did talk about a bus stop being there. And I think we could probably touch base with the town to see if we could work something out between the developer and the town about a formal bus stop there for the kids to stand at.
That'd be great. Thanks, Mark.
But we'll
explore. Yeah,
we'll explore it and get back to you on that one.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Anyone else? If not hearing anything, board have any last minute questions or concerns? I would like to, if at all possible, close the hearing and then talk about conditions and things like that at our next meeting on February 2nd. What's the board's thought on that? I think we've pretty much heard everything we need to hear, and I think I would entertain a motion to close if anyone so desires.
My only concern about closing the hearing, Mr. Chair, is because we have not received back the peer review confirmations, and there's a lot of outstanding items still. So that's really it. I don't foresee that there will be anything, but it would just, I think, be a little premature to close it. That's my opinion.
We could close it subject to Greed and Util being signing off on everything's being okay. It's up to you. I mean, if you want to.
I would be in favor of that, Mark.
But close it subject to Util and Green being satisfactorily taken care of
Yes.
for all the peer review issues. What
So
about the
all of
rest?
them. So all of them.
Well,
we make a decision.
You've heard Jesse and Maren has talked to Green and everyone else that basically we're talking about minor corrections here or there, that most of everything else has been done. We're not going to really take any more input. We're just going to make sure that by February 2nd, everything's taken care of and that we can address. I think the bank should really work on the conditions of approval and get that all to us, and we should decide what we're doing on February 2nd. So I'll just throw that up.
If I could, and I appreciate everyone's time tonight. I know the hour is getting late. I guess we'd like to know if the board is, where we are on this, if at all possible. I don't know if it's something that, I'm hopeful that, the board is supportive of the project, that we can move forward. If we need to, wordsmith conditions and things of that nature at the next meeting, certainly I understand that. But,
Mr. Vaughn, you're much more politic than I am. I usually say it. Are you asking me to, I ask the board if they're asking me to draft an approval or draft a denial.
Well, I would say that we should probably be working on an approval and get the conditions of approval of how we would approve it, the outstanding issues and how we're going to address them moving forward, and the construction documents and things like that. I think that's what we should be working on. So,
and I'm happy to take the laboring oar on that and work, with Maren on that. So,
So the issue is whether we want to close the hearing subject to satisfactory reports from Util and from Green, or do we want to keep it open and close it at the meeting and then vote the conditions of approval? How's the board feel? Bartlett?
Is it, I don't know what your process has typically been, but is it possible for the board to indicate their, subject to getting the material that you feel like you need to get from Green or whomever? But I guess we're just looking for an answer. I mean, we've been at this for a while, and would like to know if the board is going to be in support of the project or not. So
how's this, Mr. Vaughn? I'm going to ask each of the board members if there's any outstanding issues that would warrant them not voting in approval of it. I think the bank has done everything they can. I'm comfortable that between the bank and town council getting the conditions of approval satisfactory, that I would vote in favor of this on February 2nd. Bartlett, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the same. Once the conditions are approved, and I'll approve the project.
Delisa?
Same.
Anna?
I think I'm still considering it. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Vaughn, you need 3 out of the 4 votes, so I think we're heading in the right direction, and let's all work together to get this resolved by February 2nd. How's that? Does that work?
I think that's the best we're going to do right now. So, yeah, I appreciate it. Is that your next meeting? You don't meet in?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you're going to need the time to get everything squared away. We had talked about having another meeting, but it would only save you a week. I think it makes more sense to get everything done, everything squared away, and meet with us on February 2nd, where we can close this and vote the conditions of approval.
So we're not going to close it tonight.
No, I don't think anyone, unless you want to make a motion to close it, Delisa.
No, I'm just asking a question.
I personally would like to, but I don't think there's, I think people want to kind of keep it open until everything's, all our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted, so.
Bartlett, is that what you want to do?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So why don't we just get everything squared away, make sure by February 2nd, everything's done. You'll have a draft of conditions of approval sooner rather than later, so we can go back and forth with town council on it. And hopefully we'll have a nice, neat package for February 2nd. How's that?
Very good. I really appreciate your time and all your hard work on this. So thank you again. I know that the bank is very appreciative and excited about this. So
Thank you.
thank you for your patience.
Thank you all, and thank you all the neighbors who have talked.
My only recommendation is that the board vote to continue the public hearing then to Thursday, February, what did you say? 2nd. Do you want to do this right at the beginning at 6 p.m.?
Yeah, let's do it first. Is that good for everyone? Thank you. Thank you all. And thank you all for the hard work that everyone has put into this project. I know it's been a long time coming, but I agree with, this is going to be very nice. Milton. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night.
Good night.
All right. Are we done? Can we adjourn?
I heard you vote on the continuance.
Oh, well, yeah, I'll take a vote. I'll entertain a vote to continue this till, you heard me. Anyone want to second that? Till 6?
Second.
All those in favor? Bartlett?
Yes.
Elisa?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Oh, yeah. And Anna, thank you for enduring with us. I know it's been a difficult time for you, and I know you're not feeling great, but I really do appreciate you staying in for the whole
Yeah,
thing.
sorry about the the internet connection and being garbled.
Well, thank you. Thank you for, I know it's been difficult. Thank you.
All righty. So I move that we adjourn today's meeting, right?
Yep. Second, who wants to second that?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Bye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Okay. Good night.
Good night. Thank you. Thank you, Maren, as always.